Hi guys, welcome back to the vlog. It's day 2 of my M4 Mac testing thing, and if you watched the previous episode, the first part of this basically, if you didn't by the way, link up here somewhere. Terrible lighting in here today. That's what this vlog's all about, really rough production standards. But yeah, if you didn't see that yesterday, basically I started the testing, or tried to start the testing between the M4 Pro Mac Mini, the M2 Pro Mac Mini, and my M3 Max MacBook Pro. Quite a ragtag bunch of comparisons, but it's what I have to hand. And I spent most of the day, this isn't selling that previous part of this vlog if you haven't watched it yet, but I spent most of that time downloading stuff and waiting for stuff and then downloading stuff again and what have you. But I did get some testing done. Basically, I got the Lightroom and the Final Cut Pro part of the testing done, and it was interesting. The M4 Pro Mac Mini is faster than the M2 Pro Mac Mini, obviously, apart from in one area, which was Lightroom export for some reason. Very strange. And it's from memory, lots of numbers I haven't kind of looked through yet. It was pretty close to the M3 Max MacBook Pro, which is impressive. The next task I have today is the Logic Pro test, and to do that I'm basically going to throw together a massive Logic Pro project, chuck loads of audio and MIDI stuff into it and loads of effects and things, and just see how the general performance is on the M4 Pro Mac Mini, just in terms of making my way around it, building that track, etc., and then export that track to a WAV file, maybe an MP3 file or something, and see how long that takes between all three of them. And then do a stress test on the Mac Mini, on the M4 one, where I open all of that stuff at once. Lightroom, Final Cut Pro, and what was it, Logic Pro, and just have everything running at once and just see if, one, I can get the fan going, because I've not heard the fan once. This thing, honestly guys, is so quiet. It's unbelievable. I've kind of had this suspicion that the size of it might result in some less than desirable fan noise, but it's not made a single noise. It's been as quiet as that one, the M2 Pro version. So I've been impressed, basically. That's a bit tight. Anyway guys, time to crack on. I'll improve the lighting so you can actually see what I'm doing, or you can actually see my face if you really want to. Is that better? That's a bit kind of terrible, but still. Ugh. Anyway, let's crack on. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. This is Logic Pro. If you don't know, Logic Pro is basically a music production. They're called DAWs, D-A-Ws, Digital Audio Workstation, I think the official. Anyway, basically you make music in Logic. I've used Logic for years and years, since I was a little kid, actually, funny enough, when it was owned by eMagic. Before Apple bought it. There's a little pointless fact for you. Okay, so basically I'm going to just fill it with as many tracks of MIDI and audio as I can. So audio is up here in blue. These are pieces of audio, and if I play one of these back for you, it's just solo that. That's coming out of the that distortion, by the way, is actually on the bass part. It's not on the speaker. The speaker in the Mac Mini, the M4 Mac Mini, is a bit better than the terrible one in this, which is really interesting, I find. Anyway, so that is basically, it's just audio. It's an audio recording, and then we have MIDI, which is stuff like, let's pick something different, stuff like this here. And that's not what is audio, obviously, but it's not recorded audio. It's coming from a synth, like a soft synth, which in this case is a horns preset in Logic Pro, basically. So it's a built-in sample of a string part, basically. So, and the idea being that you have a mixture of audio and MIDI tracks, and it taxes the computer more significantly the more that you have, if that makes sense. So at one point I was trying to make this musical and doing everything in the same key and all that sort of stuff. I'm not playing this in, by the way, that's the other thing. So over here we have a whole bunch of built-in loops and they're called Apple loops, but Apple loops. It's very early. Apple loops, which you can basically drag in, and it's got all the parts played in already, so I don't have to play stuff in, which is a big time saver. But I was trying to make everything sound okay and do it in the same key, and then I suddenly thought, it doesn't matter, no one's ever going to hear this. But if you're interested, this at the moment, I've not finished. There's a lot more to do, but this is what the entire thing sounds like at the moment. Ready? It's a mixture of G minor and E minor. Horrendous. But that's pointless. That isn't pointless. That is beyond the point, because the point of this is just showing what this machine can do. And even that on its own, I've not finished yet. I haven't counted how many tracks. There must be 30 tracks there, probably, with stuff going on in each one and effects on each one. And it's not warm. Not a single ounce of a noise coming from it at all. Nothing. I mean, just that on its own is amazing. This is a more expensive Mac Mini. This was nearly £3,000, admittedly, but even still, that's impressive. Anyway, I'm going to carry on building this track, and then we'll see where we are in a few moments' time. Okay, so I've gone a bit further. We now have basically about, nearly 4 minutes worth of stuff. So it's the same loops over and over again, but it is, there's stuff in here. When I did a music stress test ages ago funnily enough, on the M2 Pro Mac Mini, I got a bit of stick for not putting a lot of MIDI stuff into each of these regions. So I think I've done that now. I mean, this is all audio here, but all of this is MIDI, loads of MIDI stuff going on. A whole variety of synths from Alchemy, which is quite a heavy hitter. They're all built-in Logic synths, just because that's easier. I do have third-party plugins and synths and stuff, but it's just getting that set up across all three machines is a bit of a pain. But yeah, all these different things that are going on, it's pretty nuts, to be honest. It sounds horrendous still. Horrible, but as you can see, very responsive. Starts and stops exactly when I ask it to. It's amazing, and still nothing. Not a single whisper of a fan. So I've opened up a whole bunch of the things that are running in the background. So we've got synths, we've got EQ, we've got, what else have we got? Delay, we've got limiters, we've got other synths behind that you can't see here. We've got a compressor as well. So much stuff going on. And this is just a fraction of it. If I press space, immediately we'll start playing. And everything responds silky smooth. Now, yes, again, this is all, stop that racket. This is all built-in stuff. It's all stock Logic things, but even still, let me count up how many tracks we've got as well. I haven't even done that yet. Okay, next part of this test was to export this entire project to an MP3 file. That's quite a simple thing for a Mac to do, but it did it pretty quickly, to be fair. Did it in 53 seconds. That's the first test I've done between these three Macs with Logic Pro, so I have no idea how it fares against the other two, which I'll try in a second, but there's still no fan noise at all. Nothing. This is nuts. Okay, we're on the M2 Pro Mac Mini now, and it's just the same, really, in terms of responsiveness, and, the CPU barely doing anything. Where is it? 25%. It's been sitting at that for a little while now. Again, no noise, no heat. That's the other thing, neither of these. That's a little bit warm. It's a little bit warmer than that, but there's no heat there at all. But that isn't hot. But anyway, the M2 Pro Mac Mini looks as though it's going to be pretty much bang on the same as the M4 Pro Mac Mini. So let me do the MP3 export and see how quick that is. Export is done, 1 minute and 38 seconds from the M2 Pro Mac Mini. And just as a reminder, the M4 Pro Mac Mini was 53 seconds. So that is a significant saving between these two. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but again, if you do a lot of audio production and a lot of exporting to MP3 files and WAV files and all that sort of stuff, those numbers mean something. Next up, and the last bit of testing between these three, is the M3 Max MacBook Pro. Let's see how that does. Okay, the export is finished from the M3 Max MacBook Pro, and it took 56 seconds. So 3 seconds slower than the M4 Pro Mac Mini. how much was that laptop? How much was it? I can't think what I paid for it. Was it nearly £4,000? It was a lot of money versus a 2,800 quid mini desktop computer. Wow. Now, a proper stress test for the M4 Pro Mac Mini. Basically, I'm going to throw everything at this thing. So all that stuff I've just done, Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro, and Lightroom, all those things going at once. Let's just see if we can make the fans spin up just a little bit, just a tiny bit. I don't think we will, but let's see. Okay, so on the M4 Mac Mini, we have Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro, Lightroom, iPhone mirroring, and then Safari, Chrome, Notion, Photos, Apple Music, Discord, iPhone mirroring, which I think I've just mentioned, and some other stuff, all running at once. And this is that massive project, by the way. This is that massive Logic project, which I can show you here just to prove it's the case. Huge Logic project. And if I just press spacebar, that starts, no problem at all. This is the Final Cut Pro project that I was testing with as well. Press play on that, straight away it goes, and it's multicam as well, so there's 3 4K 10-bit feeds in there. In a minute I'm going to then start doing the export from all 3 of these at once, just for a laugh. In terms of fan noise, there's a very, very, very slight hum, but it's really quiet. You have to pick the thing up and listen to it. It's there, but it's barely there. And yeah, I've lifted it up. You can feel the heat coming out of it. There's definitely warm air being exhausted, expelled, whatever. I can feel that now. It's quite warm. Not hot, but it's warm. But still, very quiet. I'd be happy with that in a production environment. And what I'm doing here is ridiculous. I would never run a 128 track. Did I say this earlier? 128 tracks we have on there. 128 track Logic Pro arrangement and a multicam 4K 10-bit Final Cut Pro thing and Lightroom. I just wouldn't be doing all this at once. It's ridiculous. But the fact you can, and it's not making any noise. Barely. I've made the fans come on. The fans are on. You probably can't hear that. Again, it's quite hot. Not hot, it's warm. It's nice and warm. This is what I'm doing. So we have the export from Final Cut Pro happening. We have, it's finished now actually, but the export was happening from Logic Pro at the same time as well. And the fans have died off now. And I just decided to export my entire Lightroom library, which is about 2,000 photos. That did kick the fans in. The CPU jumped up to about 98%, so that was taxing it a bit. But again, would I really be doing that ever? No, of course I wouldn't. It's still exporting that YouTube clip, YouTube video. So let's start playing Logic at the same time. Fan noise has completely died down now. It's still doing stuff here, still exporting. It's playing back. Everything is nice and responsive. That's so impressive. So I've just redone the Lightroom test because when I was doing that great big stress test on the M4 Pro Mac Mini, I noticed that the export from Lightroom was really quick. And yesterday it took, I think 6 to 8 minutes on each of these machines. So I've just run it again. And on the M2 Pro Mac Mini, it took 1 minute and 7 seconds. And then on both the M4 Pro Mac Mini and the M3 Max MacBook Pro, it took 23 seconds, which is impressive. But again, it just demonstrates why there's so many variables in this testing, which is why I could not do this full time. It's why I don't do it very often. Anyway, I've done all the testing now. I've got all my notes. The next job is for me to get out of this room, go to the gym and grab a coffee and write this up into a blog post. This is the process that I go through. So now I've done all the testing. Before I film the A-roll, which is the me talking to camera stuff where I kind of explain the top level results here, I just need to get everything in my head because I've got lots of numbers in front of me now, and I've always I had this process where I write the blog post first, and then the blog post becomes the video, basically. So it's, what time is it? It's 10 o'clock now, so plenty of time. Quickly drive to the gym, like I say, grab a coffee, write down, turn this into a blog post, basically, and then get back here, have some lunch, and film the A-roll. So film the two camera stuff where I talk about this for the main channel. And yeah, I'll come back in a minute for you, but later with some final thoughts on all of this stuff. Just destroy the stuff on that desk. Right, okay, so since I last pressed record on this camera, I've been to the gym, done a workout which kind of sorted my head out as always, and wrote the blog post which got my thoughts in order about this testing, and got back here and sat here basically and filmed the A-roll, the to-camera stuff for, I keep saying A-roll and B-roll, it's annoying, I know, the stuff where I talk about this basically on the main channel. That video should be live now. In fact, it definitely is live on the main channel if you want to go and watch that. But you've seen the behind the scenes of what's going on with all this testing, and the TLDR of this, I think, in fact, I won't even talk about the Macs because it's obvious what's going on here. The M2 Pro, that isn't the M2 Pro, the M2 Pro Mac Mini is still brilliant. The M4 Pro Mac Mini is just unbelievably good, and well, thermal issues and fans and stuff is not a big deal because they don't come on, or they come on if you do stupid things with them. The only thing I do want to wrap up with on this is this testing, as I've said a couple of times, I think, over the last 2 days, is just, it's so involved. I'm so impressed with the people that do this all the time. In every video, they do these massive, Max Tech, for instance, those guys, they do these huge tests with, you know, all these different testing scenarios, and they account for everything. And it's such hard work. There's such dedication needed for this. I'm in awe of people like that. I won't be doing this long term. I'll do it occasionally when it makes sense to. It made sense to with these, and it does when a new Mac comes out, because there's not much else you can talk about. Let's be honest. You can't talk about much more apart from, is it a bit faster than the one before? The nice thing about this Mac Mini is that it does look different, and it has some very different characteristics compared to the one that it replaces. But aside from that, it's just, is it a bit quicker? And what does that mean for people? I think that the key thing with this, the TLDR, as they say, is you can't buy a bad Mac these days. You really can't. You know, unless your requirements are NASA level, just get what you can afford. You'll love it. Simple as that. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching the vlog as always. If you haven't seen the resulting video on the main channel from all this testing, we'll put a link at the end of this one so you can go and check it out. But yeah, I'm hoping you're enjoying these behind the scenes vlogs because they're completely different to the main channel. They're very rough and ready. I know we had a mic issue on the previous one, which hopefully has been fixed on this, but they will be a bit like that, a bit rough and ready and all over the shop, but I hope you enjoy them. In the meantime, guys, I need to stop looking at the monitor and look at the lens. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers.